Always good to see you, Anthony. And thanks for
It's
the
okay if
invite.
I, is it okay if I record you?
Yes, absolutely.
Then I'm recording you. Um, it's good to hear and see you. Even though Anthony and I got to share a meal with you and Victor recently. I got to say that I'm just perfectly jealous of the city of Red Bank. They poached the talent, and our community is a little less than because of your absence, but you're back right now. So let's make good use of this time.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate everybody's interest in the history of Aloha and Washington County. So I'm with you all in spirit for sure.
Awesome. Big thumbs up. If I could just set this up, the expectations are really thin. It's really what my ask of you is just share your remembrances.
Hmm.
The reason why I want to record this is that Aloha does not have what you have right now. You have the city manager position, and you understand that there's a currency within your city that you had to quickly absorb and spend, and that's the stories. I'm not talking about cash currency, the interpersonal currency of a story. And Aloha did something incredible. And you arguably lifted some of the most weight of any of this cabal of people that got the library started. You know the story. And the reason why I asked and you accepted for me to record is I think this story should outlive us both. And it seems like the library might. And so the story should be told. And I'd love to hear what you remember. So if you're willing, would you give us give us your remembrances?
Sure. I, I can probably go on for about 10 or 15 minutes and then I'll stop and maybe ask some questions to guide it. But the very beginnings, there's a truism. People say, what does the community want? Well, it turns out the community really wanted a library. And as we got busy organizing, we found that out in all kinds of interesting ways. I'm sitting on my porch here in Red Bank, and that was the porch light. It senses motion. So anyway, we there was an organization that the Washington County sponsored called the Citizens Participation Organization, CPO, and I was living in CPO 6. That's was Aloha at the time, and Eric was the chair of that, and he would bring in interesting speakers, and he passed out a little flyer and said, "Is anybody interested in meeting to talk about a library?" And so the first person to ever do anything about Aloha Library was Eric in CPO 6 when he simply asked the question, "Is anybody interested in meeting to talk about a library?" And my recollection is there were two people that said yes, turned in the little slips, said yes. Eric reached back out and contacted us, and it turned out to be me and Victor Armendariz. And Eric, can you validate this? I think the first meeting was at the Peppermill over French fries, and it was you, me, and Victor.
That sounds about right. I remember passing out a clipboard at a
Mm-hmm.
meeting, and we had been kicked out of the Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue main building on Blanton and had to meet at the Beaverton location on Farmington.
Yes.
And then and then I remember the coffee starting, and so I validate that. I think that's an accurate representation.
Yeah. The time frame here, I thought I would never forget this, but it is getting a little hazy. It was late 2010 or very early 2011. Uh, and so pretty quickly, it grew to about 12 people who would meet regularly and do whatever needed to be done. And two of those other people are here in the room with us. That's Becky and her son Zach, right? Is it Zachary?
Zachary, yeah.
Yep, yep, and Anthony. So it was kind of a lesson on how to get a nonprofit going, and I think that somewhere around a dozen people who will show up and do whatever. So we again this trite statement that if the community wants it, they'll get it. Well, the idea of a library resonated with this core group of about a dozen. Eric and I and Victor and Becky and Anthony. uh, a guy named Doug, Lisa, Janet, Donna. These are some names that I remember from back then. And I'm sure there's a few others. It was about 12 at any given moment in time. And some of the first things we did, very fortunately, well, it was a pretty experienced group in a variety of ways. So that core group that came together, the first thing we realized we need to do is we need to start talking to other people about how does this work. And so very early on, we had meetings with other library directors, Peter Leonard at Cedar Mill and Mike Smith at Hillsborough, and they were very, very supportive. We came to realize that the whole library community across the nation is very networked, very collaborative, very uh, supportive of each other. And so we just kind of stumbled into an industry that welcomes newcomers just in general. And so that was tailwinds for what we were trying to do. Plus, we were reaching out and talking to all the right people, and that would ultimately included Eva Calcano. Fairly early on, she was the Washington County WCCLS manager, and her boss, and I can't remember his name. He was the deputy county administrator. Eric, do you remember his name? It
I
was
do
not.
not.
It was not Don. It was his other half. I think his name was Massey.
Possibly.
Yeah. So Eva and this other guy really controlled all the county money, but that's a little further downstream. We're still just meeting over French fries, and so we got sort of a network of people who would meet regularly, were very supportive, and we reached out to Dick Scouten, who was the county commissioner, and he also was very supportive. He really never played a big role, except he validated the concept early on. It was important for us as a group of people just meeting over French fries to have somebody drop in and say, "I think that's a great idea." And I think Dick Scouten's sort of influence in that regard was can't be underestimated. Just the validation of the whole idea. So a couple of months in, we had this core group of about 12. We had sort of reached out and established a pretty good group of contacts. And then the next big thing was really, I think, twofold. Number one was get a space, and the other thing was to get books and generate some activity, not only around books but some revenue. So, Becky, I think you went with me over to Bill's Thrifty, didn't you?
Believe so, because I knew Ken Finley from um,
Yes.
Cedar Mill, the property
Yeah.
he owned there, and
Yeah.
he was very supportive of community libraries, and that's how the Cedar Mill Library got started.
Yes. I believe the guy's name is Ryan Eggy. Does that sound about right?
Ryan Agee is the nephew of Ken Finley, who has managed both properties over the
Yes.
years.
Yes. So it was my recollection is it was Becky, Victor, and I went over to meet
Probably
with this,
Ryan.
yeah, Ryan. But then Ken himself dropped in unexpectedly, and Ken Findley was a signator on the documents that created the Cedar Mill Community Library, and he sat down. He said, "You know what? I've been waiting for 40 years for somebody from Aloha to ask me for help, and here we were." It took 2 generations for Aloha as a community to self-organize and figure out who the right people to ask for help was. And Findley was on board immediately, and Ryan Eggy. And so I'll have a little bit more to say about the spaces. But to this day, that relationship with the landlord has been key. And so then the other path that I mentioned was books itself. And again, Eric Squires had a contact with the is it the Middleman Jewish Community Center?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so Eric knows this guy, uh, at the time, an older gentleman who annually put on a book sale for the Jewish community at the Middleman Jewish Community Center. And Eric says, "Well, I'll tell you what. At the end of your next sale, call us and we'll pick up what you don't sell." And so we had this group of 12 people. We had now gotten a small space from Ryan Nagy that was just an empty commercial box. I think it was about 1,400 square feet. And so Eric rents this budget van with the roll-up door. We drive over to the Middleman Jewish Community Center, and we walk into the gym, and it was full of books. I mean, there were thousands of books. And I to this day remember that thinking like, oh my God, what have we got ourselves into? Were you there, Becky? Do you remember that?
I wasn't there. I came to the book sale, and if recollection was it the Mexican restaurant was it for
Yes.
sale?
Yep.
Was the first space?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Victor, did you go to that book pickup at the Jewish Community Center?
We do not have Victor in the
Oh,
room.
Victor, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
looking
no,
at Anthony.
Anthony.
no, I didn't go. I helped set up once the books came to the location.
Yes.
So, but yeah,
Okay.
I remember that.
So, oh my God, it was, we
Boxes
just moved
and boxes of books.
boxes and boxes, literally tons of books. And I remember we had it piled up as best as we could. And then we drove it back over to this space and opened the roll-up door, and they'd all slumped over. So we had this big giant slumped pile of books in that van. But so then we had space, and then we had books, and we still had the 12 people or so. And Eric, I don't know if you remember this lady's name, but she was the librarian for Beaverton High School. And
Anne Sindler Tryon.
yes, Anne, that's it. Anne was the one who brought the expertise on how to manage these books and prep us for a sale. So that was really the beginnings of the business end of the nonprofit. Was our currency was volunteers and used books, and we put on a series of book sales and philanthropy. We just asked people for money, and we weren't very sophisticated at that point, but people were generous. And we had our first event. I'm thinking this was in the holiday time. It was winter, and I really don't remember, but I know Zachary was there because the gentleman who wrote the book about the elephant was there, and we had a
Dr.
ceremonial.
Mayberry and his
Yes.
wife, Patricia Mayberry.
Yes, and we ceremoniously checked out the first book to Zachary, who was very young at that point in time, but that activity really generated outsized interest. We had state senator, we had the elected sheriff, we had the county commissioner, and so there was a lot of people really wanting this to work. And we increasingly got more sophisticated as a board. Another little side note was Victor and I went to a coffee shop on Farmington just before it goes into Portland by Beaverton Hillsdale Highway. We sat there and we actually incorporated the business end. Victor had done that before. I had never done that. So he knew how to log into the Secretary of State and the, let's see, you have to create the business and then make it a nonprofit. So there's two state agencies you have to enroll with. I can't remember who the other one is. Treasurer, Secretary of State and Treasurer. And he knew how to navigate all this. So Victor gave his home address and they needed a second person. So I signed on. So Victor and I were the actual first officials in the eyes of the state with this business entity that became the Aloha Community Library Association nonprofit. So now we're a business entity and a charity, but we're not a 501c3. I'll get to that story in a minute. That's a little bit later. But we're now a bona fide business entity. We sign a lease we had incorporated as a nonprofit, and that was a milestone with Findlay and Eggy, that we had to be a real entity. He gave us some time to use the space, but before we could sign a contract, we had to be a business entity. So we got that work accomplished, and then we opened. I want to say it was September of 2012. Does that sound about right, Eric?
It does. My recollection is that I did a Hail Mary because I was doing PR to try to generate interest for the grand opening.
Mm-hmm.
And KGW, a lady named Sally Ramirez, was a producer, and they brought out a truck and they shot video, but they pulled the truck because there was a wildfire. And a quick little remembrance that I had was that in this grand opening, it was quite the little shindig.
Yes, it was.
It was quite a little spectacle.
Yeah.
There was a VIP, and that was Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici, who I'd
Oh,
met with the
yes.
Washington County Public Affairs Forum. And our first space was barely over 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And so I've got her on my arm. She had just left a dysfunctional launch of the Portland streetcar where she was supposed to be the dignitary witnessing the wheels moving, and the wheels did not move, and she had to leave. And so I'm trying to keep her engaged because there's not a lot to show. It's a very tiny library, but she was stoic in a laser focused interest. And I was taken to task because I did not realize how cute baby libraries were to politicians.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I want to say on that is the libraries signaled an expansion of the tax base. And this was particularly interesting because in order for us to join the county cooperative, we were up against a future obstacle. But what we showed was that there was such strong community support for libraries, the politicians all showed up and wanted to be seen and associated with it. So anyway, that's my remembrance of the grand opening.
Well, there is politics and revenue. We wrote some bylaws. We One of the first decisions, a consequential business decision, and I've actually seen this with other nonprofits. When generally nonprofits have a something they do. They fix bikes, they run a library, they do meals to homebound, but they have a purpose. And so when you're scaling up, do you hire people who do what the nonprofit does at the point of service delivery, or do you hire an executive to run the business? And either path can work, but we made a decision that our first hire would not be a librarian. Our first hire would be the executive to run the business. And in hindsight, that was a very good decision. It was Terry Palmer, and I don't know, is she still there, Eric?
I believe so.
Yeah. She had personal reasons to be interested in joining a nonprofit. And so we hired her to be the executive director of the nonprofit. And we were really kind of starting to hit our stride by then. We had a space, we had books, we had a bank account, a treasurer, all the appropriate officer positions were populated by people who were all hitting it out of the park. The treasurer was on top of the money. I was the secretary writing meeting minutes. The president was signing, incorporation papers. And so this group of people, in hindsight, really accomplished a lot of extraordinary things because they were all capable and interested. None of us, even our first hire, was not a librarian. They were just people who wanted to make this thing work. And let's see, the next major hurdle that we crossed, really, I think, was becoming a 501c3. And we accomplished that. I think I shepherded most of that. We found an accountant who would help us. I think I went and bought a book called How to Incorporate a nonprofit for dummies or something like that. And I just literally did a page turn. It said, do this, I did that. So we became a nonprofit, and that really opened the doors to philanthropy on a whole new scale. People would give you money. The county would give us money. Eva Calcano gave us $5,000. She had discretion as manager to just give us $5,000, and she gave us $5,000, and that was probably the biggest $5,000 you could ever give, because it really legitimized us. And let's see, what was the other big decisions we made early on? The volunteer base, I learned that if you create a safe space for people to volunteer, they will volunteer their time. I don't think people viewed Aloha as a quote unquote wealthy community. But those of us who lived there knew the wealth was there, and in a lot of forms. And perhaps the most useful form was volunteer labor. So we created a safe place for volunteers to come, and they turned out. People really liked to volunteer at the library. They loved the safe space, the sense of accomplishment, the sense of purpose, meeting people and helping them in a safe place. It turns out volunteering in a library is a very satisfying volunteer experience. So we created that framework where volunteers could come and do their thing and leave happy and serve the community. So that was a key discovery. I don't think we really understood that going into it, but we sure learned that quickly. When you become a nonprofit, people will give you money. People are always looking for some worthy place to give their old books. And then when you create a safe place for people to volunteer, they'll show up. And yeah, by then, Ryan Eggy started to take notice that we were bringing foot traffic. Eric, you mentioned the tax-based dynamic, but there's a business dynamic here too, and that is we were good for them all. We were bringing in a demographic, young mothers, and people interested in reading. So this is the kind of people that every mall wants to come to their mall, and so Ryan Eggy and Mr. Finley gave us a super sweet deal on a bigger space. We moved across the mall, and concurrent with that, we took on a lot of donated furniture. Nike let us make a run through their warehouse. The banks, the Banks Library, gave us their curriculum desk, and so again, this goodwill that exists in the library community is truly extraordinary. I don't know that I've ever seen another industry where they want everybody to succeed quite as robustly as the library community does. Well, Diane, you've been patiently listening to me. What questions can I answer for you?
What was the location of the first library?
There's a Mexican restaurant. Well, I don't know if it's still there, but if you're facing the former Bales Thriftway, it's that building to your left. Yeah.
You know where the Sakura Asian restaurant is, and the drive-through coffee in the new Wilco?
Basically, it was in the
Kind
same
of,
mall that it's
kind of.
currently in now, but
Yeah.
it was physically in a different structure.
There's a
That little one, and it's what now, a coin operated laundry?
there's a dry cleaner there, and it's really close to Mountain View Junior High.
Okay, okay,
It's out by the Dairy Queen. It's just further west,
okay.
and that's where we started first. However, Martin, kind of a point of order. If I understand from urban folklore, Aloha had an informal library on Blanton or Shaw in the 1970s, and it wasn't really connected to WCCLS.
Well,
It
no,
was run out of a house, or that's what I heard. And we heard about this here and there, but it wasn't really well documented. And I'm curious what your remembrances are, if that ever popped up in your world.
no, not that version of it. I know that WCCLS, as a aspect of Washington County, had a little building in the kind of out in front of the International School. Is that Shaw or no? Or is it Blanton?
Blanton.
Yeah, Blanton. And it was kind of like, I think it's a dental office now, but it was a county facility and the WCCLS was in there and they would just loan out paperback books is my recollection of the story. It it was library people and they were loaning out books, but they were absolutely not a library per se. But that sense that you could get a book there was real because you could walk in there and when they were open, they would let you have. There's the books over there, almost kind of like the neighborhood honor libraries that you see around neighborhoods now.
Wow.
And I remember, Martin, there was a donor that did a couple of fundraising where he would match up to a certain amount of money. Because I remember Zachary sold popcorn and homemade dog biscuits at one point.
Yes, there were some donors, and I should
And it was
probably
a couple thousand up to a couple $1,000s. I don't remember his name or anything.
yes. Let's see. Eric, the names have slipped me. There was two. The lady who became that was president right before me, and she did a fantastic job. And her and I worked some of those early fundraisers, and we did find some people, and I don't remember who they were, Becky, but there were some people willing to give in the low thousands. There might have been one or two who were in the $10,000 range,
And I
and we
remember he had some kind of connection, whether his family lived in Aloha. I don't quite remember.
yeah, I don't remember either, but I think those initial fundraisers, which seemed big to us at the time, they netted probably 25,000. And we did one or two of those a year for a couple of years. But that was all we needed because we were really all volunteer. We had one employee, and she was pretty modest, and Finley was giving us the rent for free, I think, for the first couple of years.
I want to evoke a name to prompt your memory, and I'm so glad we're doing this because you're reminding me of stuff that I had long forgotten. And so I'm glad we're recording this because my brain's full of stuff. Dick Scouten did something I thought was remarkably smart for our fundraising, and that he brought in Linda Laviolette. And do
Yes,
you remember Linda?
I
And
do.
so Linda helped with the fundraising because she knew about the Wan Young Trust, who's the benefactor behind the
Oh,
Kinos.
yes,
And
yes.
then she would help us understand like when Pat Reeser wants to donate, or she basically knew the big money, the schedule of the big money, and that was her value. And she knew what people wanted, what they were willing to donate. And that
It
was
might have
kind of
been
some,
it might have been Pat Reeser, Becky, behind that first big fundraiser.
Okay, yeah, because I know, I mean, she lived up in the hills in Aloha.
Yes, yes. Eric's reminding me. I forgot about the Wan Young Trust. In hindsight, these were fairly modest amounts of money, but they were huge to us, and they were not insignificant. They were like 5,000, 10,000 was the scale of the grants we were pursuing. There was, and I don't remember who it was, Eric. They toured through the library and sized us up and said, "Yep," and they wrote a big check. And I don't remember who it was. And I'm thinking they wrote a $25,000 check, and I think that was the money we used to make some facility modifications to really, when we left the old small place and moved across the parking lot into what is now a part of the big space. Uh, yeah, and I'll tell you another one that was big, huge, was Pacific University in Forest Grove. They gave us probably $20,000 worth of totally legit library shelving. And I think that's still the shelving that's in the library now. It was
Mhm.
that high end brand name. I can't remember what it was called, but there's an industry standard in library shelving, and they donated truckloads of it to us. Because I remember, again, this core group of volunteers, we showed up there with U-Haul trucks. We moved all that stuff. Ah, man, I forgot that. We all bought rubber mallets and pounded these things together and created the shelving that the library still uses today.
Is it truth or a lie that you drove in your pickup to Umatilla to get a book drop?
It's truth. Again, the library community is so giving. I drove to the Umatilla Public Library and picked up the book drop. That was our first book drop. Absolutely truth. Forgot about that.
The, well, that this is where we're holding each other accountable before we hit the memory care, because I think this is a really important story to tell. Our
Yeah.
time is dwindling, and we're close to the 40-minute mark. And I really wish that I canceled our unlimited link Zoom meeting because basically we've got $151 in our budget of this, but we're not doing it for the money. We're doing it because these stories are important. Um,
And
I'm
you're talking 16 years approximately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know time goes fast. I'll give a shout out to one of the library that consistently helped us out. It was a Sandy library. And I don't remember exactly what they donated. I think it was more shelving, but yeah, all the shelving and furniture was all donated. I don't think we bought any of it. We didn't have the money to buy it. Uh, yeah, very generous colleagues in the library business and very generous people. Again, the wealth of Aloha really showed up. And I spoke earlier about the volunteer labor, but there was philanthropy there too. There were people who saw what we were doing and liked it and were generous, very
So
generous.
we have a benefactor who's sending you a message. This person was unable to attend, but smitten that this event was happening. You
Good.
spoke this person's name earlier, but I wanted to put a point on this person because I think that they arguably had the throttle and also the kill switch for the Aloha Library, and that's Eva Calcano.
Eva, love you, Eva. If you're still there listening, yes, Eva was a godsend because again, she was very uh, confidently optimistic we could do this. Every time you met with Eva, it was uplifting.
Yeah, so she's en route to Hawaii and for a very deserved vacation and retirement. And found out about this. I invited her and she said she just could not attend. But wanted to make sure that you understood she was really happy to see your name.
Good.
And I think that behind the scenes, she was a champion. And news I'd like to share with you, even though I'm very disconnected with the library. I did my time. I got it to where it was at when I left, and I just haven't looked back much. But what I've heard from the news is that Lisa Tattersall, who replaced Eva Calcano, reallocated the funding for libraries, and the Aloha Library got an extra $1 million plus per year out of the WCCLS fund, which was a game changer. And I wanted to share that with you because I think that not only honors, but it validates the work that we put in. The community was screaming for it. People were not asking the question, when do you want it? Nobody is asking, do you want it? But we prompted them with the question and we gave them what they wanted, and they're just continue to realize that they wanted it all along. So,
Eric, I'll mention if I could. It's just the waning minute. I talked a lot about different constituencies, but I'll talk briefly about the staff. I mentioned Terry Palmer, but there was a couple other key staff that came on, and as a business entity, I remember we got to where we had enough financial wherewithal to offer benefits to our 4 full-time employees, and I'm about to start crying because I was an officer in the nonprofit at that time. I don't remember if I was president or secretary or some official role, and that was a big deal to be able to offer benefits to our employees. And then we shopped some plans. I think Eric, you were. I think you were in that in an official capacity, Eric. We shopped insurance plans, and the employees chose a Kaiser plan, if I recall correctly. And it brought us all to tears that we were bona fide enough to offer benefits to our employees. And that's a major milestone in the life of any business, let alone a nonprofit.
yeah, it spoke to what we were able to get. We built the business, and
Yes.
nonprofits are still a business, and we took
Yes.
care of the people,
Yes.
both inside and out. I think we're within just a minute or seconds from getting cut off. I'd say not only let's do it again, but I prompt you if you come across things that you remember, write them down because I'd love to continue the conversation about this. And as your friend, I want to thank you for many things. First, being here tonight. Second, for continuing to, I mean, it's just like bottomless contributions. I mean, I never heard the word no come out of you. We were always getting to yes, and I'm really proud of what we did. And I think people look along and go, wow. I just want to close with this. Jason Snyder now is on the Washington County Commission. I was watching him on a meeting, and he was a Tigard City Councilor, and he was like, Aloha's got a library? How'd that happen? How did Aloha get a library? It's not even a city. And we explained to him that we formed his staff explained to him they formed a nonprofit and they got it done. Like, that's unusual.
Yeah.
And anyway, we got it done. Good
But
job.
we're not the only one in that regard. And that speaks highly of the whole WCCLS construct that they let nonprofits in.